Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is Speedify Live Q&A for the live stream formerly known as office hours, but no longer. So anyway, questions, answers. How do you ask questions? You take your keyboard and in the comments, wherever you're watching this video, you type them and you put them in as comments and we will see them pop up and we will answer them. It'll be awesome. I'm Alex. This is Kevin.
Hello.
And we are some of the people who make Speedify. So give us a follow, smash the like button so you don't miss future streams. It's gonna be awesome. So next week, I'm in Barcelona, sunny Barcelona. So it's gonna be awesome. If anyone is going to Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, do drop a note. I think my Monday is full, but you know, Tuesday and Wednesday, I still have some time. It'll be great. So Speedify, what is the latest version of Speedify, and why should people be running it?
So we're currently in the 16.4 releases. There's a 16.4 bug fix release. I think some of the Apple platforms got a 16.4 too, or they're going to be soon. It's in review right now for some bug fixes. But yeah, I mean, we're always making improvements, but we finally exposed, after a long time, the secondary threshold. It's something people have been asking about for a long time, that they want better control of when the secondary connections get pulled in. So normally Speedify has primary connections, and it'll use those as long as they're fast enough. But if it needs a speed boost or things are starting to fail, it can bring in the secondary connections, but it tries to use the secondary connections less. And so, you know, we've always had the kind of just default limit of, if your primary connections are providing at least 30 megabits, then you don't need to use the secondary connections. And it decides that in each direction. So you could have, you know, more than 30 megabits of download, and it won't use the secondary connections in the download. But if your uploads are still slow, it'll use the secondary in the uploads. But some people want to control that. They want to either make it more or less likely for those secondary connections to kick in. So you can change the secondary threshold.
So I have to admit, we've gotten some feedback that some people are confused by our language here. In fact, after the stream, we should sit down and, you know, discuss it a little bit. And so if any of you have ideas, right? So each of these thresholds should be like higher than what you need to get done. It's like the target speed, right? If you're about to send a 30 megabit live stream, you need to make sure that the prioritized stream level is higher than 30. Right? This is the level up to which we're willing to use cellular. It's like a target speed. So if you lower these numbers, like if you set the standard traffic down to 5 megabits, then your cellular connections will only get used when your Wi-Fi is slower than 5 megabits. It almost turns it into a backup connection. Right, but if you're just like, use my cellular almost all the time, you might want to bump it up to 50 or 70 or 100 or, you know, or higher. So a lot of people seem to be trying to set it exactly at what they need, and that's not right. Bump it a little higher so that you know, so you're definitely using cellular at the point you need it. So I'm thinking we may change some names or some text here. I think the functionality is exactly right. Someone was suggesting last week that maybe we need a diagram, a little picture on this page of showing, you know, will use cellular, won't use cellular. That might explain it. So I think there's some language changes coming, but it's a cool feature, right? Like if you wish Speedify used less cellular, you just really wanted to use cellular to stop you from having a terrible time, bump these numbers down. Don't make it 30. You can make it 5.
Yeah. I will mention you could always set cellular to backup as well, and then Speedify really won't use it. But yeah, sometimes people want to fine-grain control. They have backup connection and secondary connections they want pulled in first. And for those power users, you can...
At one point, I argued that we should get rid of backup priority, and that when somebody says backup, it just sends the overflow threshold to 1 megabit. And there's almost no difference, and it's actually less code since we have both. All right, friend to all says, maybe a slider bar with Wi-Fi on the left and cellular on the right. Yes, maybe.
Yeah, we've discussed things like that before.
Be more visual. Yeah. If you slide up the cellular, you know, sort of the same thing to the code, whether you're picking a number off it or sliding the thing, but maybe that ends up being more visual. All right, I think this is a travel tip for me. All right, I hope you can see La Sagrada Familia. So last time I went and I saw the monastery with the Black Madonna. After the show, I got time to do that. And then I went to some winery, and it was fantastic. This time, as soon as it's over at Barcelona, I am sprinting out of there to go meet a customer on an island in the Mediterranean. So I think I'm going to have a different, hopefully good. Hopefully I'm not just sitting in a conference room the whole time on this island in the Mediterranean. But that's my big plan. Hello, hello, hello. All right. I had to make a decision on the spot. One company suggested free domain hosting for a year, but you have to register on the spot.
I don't know what they're asking.
Yeah. All right. Boop, boop, boop. So, if you guys have questions, drop them in the comments. Seriously, we're answering all your Speedify questions, and we appreciate feedback too. Actually, what's coming next in Speedify?
It's a good question.
Well, there's a huge pile of code I've written. Terrifying. It's been a long time since a big pile of my code has shown up.
So you wrote it? You're allowed to say that?
Yes. I ruled over Claude with an iron fist. Oh my God. So the user interface, it's become infinitely snappier. I went with Claude and I ground through, why is this, not infinitely snappy? And it just kept finding little slow spots in our code and updating libraries and using new versions of this and that, and reworking how, events and signals work. And whew, it feels the way a native app ought to feel, and less like it's a website. Yeah, it's funny because nobody really complained about the speed of the user interface because you're here for the fast internet, not the changing a couple settings. But I really feel like it's pretty noticeable.
Yeah, we would occasionally have users that would complain about the background CPU usage. Sometimes it'd be using more CPU than it should have been, and so I think that'll help. Hopefully optimize some of that stuff.
Sometimes it would sit there at 3% CPU, which on one hand, that's not that much. On the other hand, it's like, why is this thing using anything? Another thing that's coming along, on iOS, I believe we finally figured out how to implement a working kill switch. Knock on wood. I haven't run it yet, but a whole bunch of people here are like, holy cow, we did it, it works. So
the main thing being, there's always complaints about things like WebRTC that tries to bind around the connections and ends up going around the VPN sometimes, and we can now make sure that your WebRTC calls always go through the VPN. Before it was sometimes they go through the VPN and sometimes it would choose not to. We didn't really have control over that, but we figured out a way to control that and make sure it consistently goes through the VPN.
Do you still use WebP or whatever that MS library is? We use the icons in the app are at least mostly WebP. I'm not sure if everyone is, but certainly all the adapter icons, I was actually looking at them, they're all WebP images. All right, Cloud Code is great. WP OpenClaw. Using it myself, hence my question previously, being able to create secure tunnels to my other devices and app would be especially useful these days. Other question? I missed a question? Yeah, I missed a question.
It's just an AI babbling on.
All right. My FaceTime calls go around Speedify. I'd love Speedify to help with buffering drop calls. What setting do I need to fix that? You need the next release of Speedify. That is exactly what we were talking about, Stephen Wright. It's tough because Apple just decides their stuff is so special that it doesn't have to follow the rules the other apps have. So we write the code to capture all your apps traffic, and it doesn't get FaceTime. So we have a whole lot of improvements that new kind of what I was calling kill switch stuff. People are saying it makes a huge improvement and stops things in Apple from on Apple platforms from sneaking around us. So I think that'll be coming in a couple weeks. All right, David doesn't know if I saw his question, which sounds right.
Yeah, we just saw hello.
I don't see a question from you. Sorry, David. Can you post it again? I'd love to answer. I just actually don't see a question from you. So post again. And WP OpenClaw, if you actually had a previous question, I don't see it either. So I don't know.
Yeah, we're dropping some comments.
There's some technological glitch here. Probably. So anyway, if I have not answered your question, it means I didn't see it. Well, damn weeks. Why not Friday? I'll be honest, I haven't tried this yet, which makes me nervous because I break things. But the QA people say it works, so.
Yeah, but yeah, we're not doing a release on Friday this week.
Yeah. All right. So Amazon Leo versus Starlink. We've been pretty big fans here of Starlink, not for any political reason, but just holy cow. You can set these dishes up in Kevin's backyard, our roof, my kitchen roof, and suddenly get what's often 300 megabits. Sometimes it's 1 megabit, but usually 300 megabits. And it's just given us this ability to put internet on yachts, things like that, places where there was no internet before. We just pop these things on, get internet. They come and go, which stinks, but then you use Speedify and you bond in one cellular connection, and now you have steady internet. Each one can be kind of inconsistent, but if they don't go at the exact same time, you're online with fast, reliable internet. But Amazon is coming with their Leo. I guess it stands for low Earth orbit, but they're just writing it as Leo, capital L-E-O. So how much do we really know about Leo at this point?
I think it's pretty limited. I mean, we've seen what plans they have about certain things, but I think they're still kind of in the process of setting this all up. So I mean, we haven't been able to play with one or anything like that. So we kind of have limited information about just what's available out there. So it sounds like they have some number of satellites
on the website. They've got dishes listed that get you a gigabit up and down. Is that real? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if it's an up to based on conditions. I'm sure, but yeah,
100. I guarantee you, it's based on conditions.
Yeah,
but I think they're up to a couple hundred satellites now, right?
That's what I've heard. Yeah, and so their satellites are at a slightly different orbit, slightly higher orbit than the Starlink ones. So I think they have a little more coverage, but higher latency. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see once they've gotten things set up how it performs and how it compares to Starlink.
Yeah, so it's interesting because Starlink is up to 10,000 satellites, plus or minus, and so Amazon is shooting for having 3,236, but they're saying that they have 212 now, and once they hit 578 up, they're going to turn on service and start letting people use it.
So from a reliability standpoint, I mean, the Starlink and the Leo are each going to drop out at times, but if you have both of them, they can hopefully not drop out at the same time, and with Speedify, you can end up covering up those gaps.
I am so excited. The idea that, because one of the weird things is Starlinks, they're all synchronized. They all switch satellites at the exact same moment. So you get little glitches, plus sometimes there's no satellite overhead for weird reasons. To have a totally independent satellite service, which could be actually less reliable, will completely transform how reliable it is. To have a Starlink and a LEO, they'll go out at different times, and it's going to be amazing. I am super excited. An interesting thing, right, is that the guy running the Amazon was the original guy running the Starlink, but he got fired because he was going too slow. He was being too careful building these big, complicated satellites, and they cut him and decided to do just smaller satellites and learn what they had to learn and build new ones. You know, basically every month Starlink puts out a new satellite design. Like, they have so many different versions of their satellite, and most of them are tiny changes. You know, at the beginning, there were ones where like, oh, well, they're painted black now, you know, version 21 of the satellite. But they are constantly upgrading, going fast and fast and fast, and learning instead of designing these huge things. This guy had a reputation that he was, you know, designing these complicated satellites, but, you know, he's been doing it for years, and now Amazon's doing it, right? So, but yet, as far as altitude, the Amazon ones are at 620 kilometers, and the Starlink ones are only 500 kilometers. So that gives them a little broader coverage, a little worse latency, right?
Yeah, and the Starlink latency has gotten pretty good. I mean, you can sometimes see 20, 30 milliseconds out of the Starlink, which is really...
They've got lots of ground stations. They actually lowered the satellites some. They brought them down in orbit. All right. All right, we have a whole bunch of questions we ignored. Let's pop back. How does router licensing work? We have router licenses. They are different than the regular licenses. The regular licenses let you use, you know, 5 devices at the same time. Router license, it's per router. Routers can end out using huge amounts of resource on their back end. And the Speedify software itself is actually a bit more sophisticated.
Yeah, there's some different features and performance improvements and things on the router that don't apply to other platforms.
Performance enhancing proxy. So some cool stuff. So it is per router license. All right, Vadim, do you have an infrastructure recovery plan for outage backup? Have you had a chance to verify in a live environment for such a case? In other words, eat own food. Yes. Yes. So the individual speed servers are very independent. They do their thing largely by themselves. So we scale really nicely. We add them up. They just report home. Our directory servers are load balanced with DNS. So we have lots of them. And, you know, if any one fails, boop, it just falls out of the DNS, and the clients will connect to the ones that still work. For the database, we have, you know, hot replicas around. At any time that our database goes down, we can hit a big red switch, and we are on a different database that is, you know, only a tiny bit behind. So yeah, every single step, and yes, we've tested them, can and frankly does fail.
Yeah, and the actual speed servers with your VPN sessions, those are spread across a vast number of, you know, different data centers, different providers, and different locations. And so even if one particular provider has an issue in one city, there's likely still other servers working in that city that users can use.
Yeah, an interesting thing is what we consider our quality delay. Our quality guarantee is that if a speed server goes away, that every client connected to it will be connected to another server within 60 seconds. Typically, it's more like 30 seconds. And the reason, well, like, why isn't it instant? The answer is because our software is built around the assumption that internet connections fail all the time. But servers don't fail very often. And the reason we built that assumption into the software is that internet connections fail all the time. And our servers rarely fail, but they do fail. Like, it's not perfect. And so when when your device suddenly loses its connection to the server, its first assumption is, oh man, something's gone wrong with my Wi-Fi, right? Something's gone wrong with my Ethernet. Let me try all the ways I can to get it working, to get working on cellular, to blah, 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 right? So it does all these things. And, we're 15 seconds in before it says, you know what? You know what? I
The
don't
server's
think
gone.
this is me. And in general, that's the right thing to do because our servers are pretty good. But, weird disasters happen. Sometimes Amazon East goes down, right? All right. I have a friend who live streams with a food delivery app. He recently got Starlink to help when his mobile doesn't work. Can Speedify help bond the Starlink and mobile together for seamless ops? Yes. You're on, Speedify on the phone, and the Wi-Fi is connected to the, Starlink on your roof or whatever, and then you've got the cellular on your phone. Speedify will bond them both. All right. Sorry, I rewrote my original question. It would be great if Speedify could detect other devices on the same account. Let me create a bonded connection with them. As long as you're on the same Wi-Fi network, it does. This is the pair and share feature. Go into pair and share, and if you have, it's really the mobile phones that will share their cellular with other devices on the network. So they get too technical. They find each other with MDNS, right? Apple's Bonjour. And then they'll offer up their cellular. So there's some neat stuff in there already.
I'm not sure if he means more like a Tailscale like thing though, where he wants to actually directly talk between the devices. Although you can run Tailscale over top of Speedify in some cases, and be able to talk over the Tailscale network and have them use the bonded connections with Speedify.
Yeah, on Linux devices, it works perfectly. You connect Speedify, you connect Tailscale, and Tailscale runs over Speedify. And if you're connecting something local, it goes around Speedify. If you're going to the internet, it goes over Speedify, so you get bonded Tailscale. Living the dream. What kind of internet are yachts using now?
A lot of Starlink from
a lot of Starlink. A lot of the mega yachts are using multiple Starlinks and Speedify to put them together. So that's fun. All right. I report 300 megabits on Starlink in the UK, bonded as Prime, with 2 times 5G, and ADSL. We get about 750 megabits down, and average with drops now and then. Nice. Yeah. So I'll answer a few more questions. We'll come back and talk about bonding 2 Starlinks together because we actually have a bunch of wisdom on that. The latency on Starlink is very good. Can we use a router license with a dedicated server? Yes.
Yeah, they're two separate licenses.
They're 2 separate licenses. You can get a router license put on your router. You can get a dedicated server. You can connect the 2. I've noticed my mobile data often stops working when Speedify VPN is on, especially with a weak Verizon signal. Disconnecting the VPN fixes it.
What platform are you on? Are you on Android, iOS? Yeah, I don't know why Speedify would mess with.
That doesn't sound. Yeah, that does not sound right, and that is the opposite of my experience.
I don't know how Speedify could be causing your mobile data to stop working. But yeah, I'd say after you see that happen, if you go into Speedify into the menu and click Generate Logs, and then send us the logs, contact our support. We can look in more detail, or if you have any more details about what exactly you're seeing happen. But yeah, I don't know. Speedify shouldn't be causing your mobile data to stop working.
All right, if Betelgeuse explodes, it will be a disaster for all Starlinks and LEO satellites. All will be destroyed in a moment. Rare probability, but still, I wouldn't rely completely on Earth orbital connections. Betelgeuse, of course, is the largest star that we know about, and it's not that far away, and it kind of looks like it's going to explode sometime soon. Depending on how that explosion goes, Potentially, it's a problem for more than just the Starlinks, and maybe less. So one of the nice things, actually, about Starlink is their satellites are now only at 500 kilometers up, which turns out to mean, they talk about the Kessler effect, right? If a satellite explodes and you have 10,000 other satellites in the same orbit, the pieces can make 5 or 6 other satellites explode in their pieces, and you get this chain reaction where the Earth ends out surrounded by swirling metal shards going at thousands of miles an hour, and it becomes impossible to get into space. The nice thing about Starlink, they're at like the lowest stable orbit. Experts suggest that if they did explode into, a swirling set of razor blades flying around at 10,000 miles an hour, I think it's 2,000 miles an hour, but whatever, they would actually all degrade and burn up within 2 years. So it's not that bad. I mean, obviously it's not great, but if for 2 years nobody could launch a rocket, life would go on, right? It's actually the middle Earth orbit stuff and the geosynchronous stuff that starts getting dangerous. Because if a geosynchronous satellite explodes, its pieces will hang out for 1 million years. A middle Earth orbit, 50,000 years? That's where it's dangerous. The Starlink isn't the problem, right? If they or the LEOs just explode 2, 3 years, 5 years top to get 100% of it gone, we'll be fine.
I'm sure they can figure out some way to push the pieces out of the way or something. There's got to be some way to do something. But yeah.
There have been, Japan and Europe have each done a few tests where they put up, satellites dragging nets and stuff, and some of them have managed to, at a cost of tens of millions of dollars, catch one piece of junk. So I'm not sure it's impossible, but if 10,000 satellites each blow up into 50 parts, I think it's okay to just wait 2 years and then go back in space. But yeah, some of those higher orbits, horrifying how long these things last. All right. Country restrictions by VPN. Country choice, perhaps. Oh, that you don't want to use a particular country. Yeah, that every once in a while comes up. Right, so we let you pick. Use the fastest server or use this country. But if you want to say use any country but this country, that's not an option right now. And there have been certain countries where people have jumped on and been like, I want any country but this country. You could probably guess what the 2 or 3 countries are, but I'm not going there. There we go. It'll only take about 632 light years to hit us. 263. 632 years to hit us after it goes bang.
Because the supernova is not going at the speed of light. I mean, I think they've clocked some of them at fractions of the speed of light.
There's multiple rates, right? There's the flash, which can be bright enough to do damage of pure radiation. And then behind that come like waves of neutrons and stuff going at 90-something% of the speed of light. And each wave will do damage, right? We won't get any warning really until the first wave of radiation comes, right? You're not going to see it explode. No, you see it explode. That is the wave of radiation hitting you.
And they might be able to see things starting to happen.
Sometimes you'll see articles like it'll suddenly get a little bit dim, and they'll be like, "Oh my God, it's about to blow," and like, "Oh no." Went back to if you really watch the astronomer stuff, there are fun articles about Betelgeuse looks like it's getting closer to blow. But these scales, it could happen next week. It could be another 1 million years.
Right. Yeah. The life cycles of a star.
What I really like is in the movies Beetlejuice about the ghost. Although the name of it is Beetl. Anywhere in the movie that they write his name, they write it Beetlejuice, like the star. Watch in each of the movies they write it a couple times to make sure you don't miss it. Solar maximum while the Earth is in closer orbit is a bigger problem. Well, depends. Tesla's space vacuum cleaner, yes. All right, how are copper wires able to send so much data? Is it a simple signal sending electricity on and off again? Seems difficult to get it right every time. We have a video, I believe we just launched on our YouTube. We talk about this. So the interesting thing is, so inside a processor, it's just on and off. High voltage, low voltage. There are a bunch of papers that have shown decisively that computers would, across the board, be like 40% faster if we went with high voltage, no voltage, negative voltage. Go with a balanced ternary instead of binary. But it's just too late. Too much software has been written. Everyone realized that we could have faster computers at the same price if we all just changed all of the software anyone's ever written. And so that's never going to happen. But a couple of people have built processors using it and like, yeah, holy cow, these are much, much faster. When you start doing stuff on longer distances like Ethernet, Ethernet does much more sophisticated things in order to get a gigabit over copper, right? It's using different levels. It's using, lots of stuff. The interesting thing is lasers in fiber optics. You would think that I would think, maybe you guys are much better at physics than me. I would have thought, man, a laser in a fiber optic cable, that must be so fast. So much faster than electricity flowing through a wire. It turns out that electricity flows through copper at 98% of the speed of light in a vacuum. A laser goes through glass like a fiber optic cable at only 70% of the speed of light. So data travels through copper much faster than it goes through a fiber optic cable. One of the weird side effects of this is that where you use copper, you use fiber optic cables to connect across the ocean to talk to Europe, or to talk to the U.S. if you're in Europe, right? Those cross ocean cables. If you can bounce a laser way up into space and then back down, that's your messages arrive way faster than it does over the fiber optics. It can be worth bouncing things all the way into space just to avoid the speed penalty of the fiber optic cable. But the trick is, there's a trick because everybody uses fiber optics. Why wouldn't they use copper? You can hide so much information in a burst of light. Much more than you can electricity, right? You can have multiple frequencies of light in the same cable at the same time. You can use the phase, you can use the brightness. There's so many ways to tuck information into light. Or with electricity, it's kind of high voltage or low voltage, 1 and 0 in the same burst of light. You can hide multiple bytes, and that's why the fiber is able to get gigabits, terabits. Did I read exabits? They're absolutely crazy stuff. And so now, for the AI stuff, they're moving so much data inside these things that they're starting to put fiber going from one end of a motherboard to the other to move the data that fast, right? Put in fiber to get from the hard drive to the CPU. All right. If we use, I see your question. Sorry, I missed a detail. Good one, Bob. If you have a self-hosted dedicated server, using it does not use any of the data on your router plan, right? Router plans typically have, terabyte a month or 3 terabytes a month. If you host the server, which is an option now, we have self-hosted servers, it does not use any of your router's data. So, yeah, we're with you.
Is that regular dedicated servers that we host? That comes from a different pool, right? Than if you're just using our public server. I forget. I thought the dedicated servers themselves didn't count towards the router license usage. It was only if you're on our public servers,
That's
because
probably
you're
right.
paying for the dedicated server license. I thought that's the way it worked.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it doesn't. All right. So we were saying you could use 2 Starlinks together and bomb them with Speedify. How well does that work, Kevin?
So yeah, there's some variability there. I mean, you can physically do it, but it depends on certain conditions and factors of how much benefit you get there. So obviously, as Alex talked about before, all the Starlinks are switching at the same time. So from a reliability standpoint, you still have a gap on both dishes at the same time that won't be covered up by that. But in terms of bonding, getting more speed, a lot of it comes down to how the dishes are positioned, and I guess a bunch of other factors we don't necessarily have visibility into. But how busy is the particular satellite? Which satellites are the dishes connecting to at the same time? But we see some cases where you can have 2 dishes where we're guessing they seemingly connect to the same satellite and they end up sharing bandwidth. And we can see this if we start a test on one Starlink and then start a test on the second one. The speed on the first one will drop and they'll end up sharing the same amount of bandwidth. And then you stop the test on the second one, it goes back up on the first. So we see that behavior sometimes.
We did a lot of testing with iPerf and 2 Starlinks and no Speedify, right?
Yeah.
To know, is it us?
Yeah. But then there's other periods of times, either when we've positioned the Starlinks differently, or even just if they're close to each other, you get periods of time where either there's enough bandwidth from the satellite, or they end up connecting to 2 different satellites where we'll see you run tests on both and they get added up. Both of them get full speed of what they usually get, and you can get more. So typically that's what we see for the download. It's like the fast downloads, or typically a Starlink by itself can get 300. Sometimes when you add a second one in, they both share the 300. Sometimes you can get up to 600. But in our cases, the uploads, which usually is what people I think care about getting more speed out of, because the uploads are a lot slower, those tend to combine well. There seems to be enough upload bandwidth that if you get 30, 40, 50 on each one, that you can add those up pretty well a lot of the times. So yeah, we see different behavior, and it seems like there's a lot of conditions kind of outside of our control of what's going on with the Starlink network at that time.
The Starlink, their documentation actually says that you can put Starlinks 1 foot apart.
Yeah.
And, not really.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's enough to make sure that they're not physically, RF interference or whatever between them.
But they always end out connected to the same satellite.
Yeah.
And if you fire both up, they don't add up. So although we have two on the same roof, we've moved them further apart and tilted them each opposite direction. So one's looking a little west and one's looking a little east. And that seems to be enough that half the time we really get the speed of the 2 added up. But then half the time, it's 1.5 times the speed, right? So they do sometimes still connect.
We see consistently better combining with the upload in the upload direction. That seems to work a lot better a lot of times, where the download seems to be, because you're dealing with 300 megabits or whatever, that seems to more likely run into the limits.
All right, Bob, you're asking about the router plan. Can you email support? I know there actually is a cheaper router plan for people who plan to just use it with dedicated servers, and I'm not seeing it on our website right now. Maybe I'm just stressed because a lot's going on. But if you email support and ask about the 100 gigabyte router plan, I think they can give you a link to a shopping cart, and you can save a little bit of money. That does exist. So support at speedify.com. All right. Actual neutrinos will approach the Earth 5 to 15 hours before the rest of the radiation. That's why neutrino detectors are built all over the world, I think. Yes, this is common. So the neutrinos do go slower than the speed of light. But, and sorry, I'm related to astronomers, but not one. So the radiation will outrace the neutrinos. But some of these reactions, when a star collapses, it might actually be shooting out neutrinos for a while before it turns into radiation. And so I'm not sure. It's entirely possible that you're right for that reason, that there may be an internal explosion that gives off neutrinos before the one that blows the light at us. It's possible. I don't know. I have surprisingly little experience with blowing up stars. Though I would love to. If someone could loan me a Death Star, I would put a couple shots into Alpha Centauri and see what happens. All right. Is there any chance in the future to have a small trial of self-host to see if all bells and whistles work? Probably.
Yeah, email us at support.
Yeah, email us at support. Yeah. Yes, the self-hosted servers are shipping now. We need to make more fanfare about it, right? We launched the beta and went until I think we fixed everything everyone complained about, and I think now we're supposed to say, woo, put them on sale or something. But yeah, they're available now. But yeah, send an email to support, Bob, and we will help you. Yeah, so we're in Speedify. We have a bunch of neat stuff where we talk to the dish directly, the Starlink dish directly. We hit its API and we ask it questions like, "Are you connected? Are you obstructed?" And that lets us tune things. But there are a lot of things it doesn't tell us, right? It won't let us pick which satellite. It won't even tell us which satellite, right? So we can't feel like there'd be cool things if we knew you had two dishes and say, well, don't let the two of them use the same satellite. And we have absolutely no access to that. Do you think there's any chance that SpaceX is purposely limiting the performance when you have two dishes?
It's possible. Yeah, like I've suspected at times they see that, okay, these are two from the same account. You know, you're trying to use a whole lot of data, and there's other people trying to use data right now, so we're going to limit you. I've suspected that at times, but I don't know. We've limited visibility into the inner workings of how their network and how they're managing that.
Funny, I thought you were going to shoot that down immediately as, no, this is just...
Yeah, I don't know. It's a possibility. I mean, it could depend on what plans you have and what types of dishes. There's a lot of factors there, but I would think, yeah, if you're running into a point where there's competition for bandwidth and they'd want to distribute it fairly among the different users. I mean, maybe it's just per dish. I don't know what their algorithms decide and how they manage that.
Right. So can you use Starlink and Amazon Leo together?
I would think so. Yeah, I mean, we haven't physically tested that ourselves, but I mean, there's no reason to suspect you couldn't.
A serious thing. If any of you secretly have access to Amazon Leo, we'd like to work with you. We'd like to try things because Starlink. Obviously, Speedify worked with Starlink the first time we tried it, but performance wasn't quite as great as we expected, and as we tested, we discovered they do a bunch of little weird, subtle things, for good reasons, I think, that made Speedify and Starlink not work together as perfectly as it did after 3 weeks of Kevin with a dish in his backyard and two here at the office. We got it working much, much better, and I think there's going to be a similar process. Maybe not. Maybe it'll just work perfectly. But I suspect, and I bet there's a good chance, knowing how Amazon works, there's probably an API. They have APIs for everything, right?
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
All right. I have a Starlink, 2 cell phones for hotspot. I also have a router that connects all of this. Which way is more powerful, running Speedify on router or on each device?
So it's probably more convenient to run it at the router. I mean, I guess it depends on how many devices you have and what all you want to do. But yeah, if you have a bunch of different devices, it can be a pain to have to run Speedify on every device and get them all access to the same internet connections when you can just have one device that gets access to those internet connections and can share it with everything else. And you can support devices that aren't even able to run Speedify.
And with our new router software, this answer is a little different than it was even a few months ago, because now the routers have this performance enhancing proxy. It's part of what's included in the router license. And that really improves the speed of shared connections. Yeah, used to be that the extra hop kind of slowed us down a little bit because we couldn't send packets as big as we wanted. But all that got fixed. Make sure your router's on the latest version of Speedify. That's what I'm saying, and it makes a huge difference. But yeah, here's my router. It's got 2 cellular connections, Ethernet. You can plug in a Starlink there. You plug in the Comcast cable, and then have a Verizon connection. I'm just good to go, right?
But yeah, depending on your use case, I mean, if you have a phone that you're walking around with and leaving the house and stuff like that, it can be beneficial to run Speedify directly on the end device as well, if you're able to connect it to whatever connections you want. And that way, when you leave your house and get off your router, you still have benefits of Speedify there. So yeah, it depends on what you're doing, how many devices you have, what you're trying to accomplish. But in a lot of cases, the router is the more convenient way to go.
Yep. All right. Man, we've been going for 45 minutes here. All right. I think we're going to call it here. All right. Thanks, guys. This was great. Got some good feedback from you guys. Hopefully answered some of your questions. If you have more questions, shoot an email to support@speedify.com. We're happy to help you. Thank you, Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, I think I'm going to say good night. And see you all online.